Hello again, whiskey friends. Hey, thanks for joining, everybody. And we have a very special whiskey review here for you today. This is going to be a review of the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, but a very specific barrel proof here. So, this is batch Y723. That may not sound familiar to everybody, but that's specifically because this is coming from the You Bourbon experience, whatever it is at Heaven Hill that allows you to fill your own bottle. We recently did that, as you can see, on October 5th and got to enjoy this delicious Elijah Craig here. So, in this review, not only am I going to talk about this batch, give you a little preview of what happens if you do this own pour your own bottle experience, but ultimately give you a little summary about why I'd recommend you do this experience yourself. So, thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right, let's pour a little bit in here. We'll go through the tasting notes here in just a minute. We'll let that open up. Cheers to It's Bourbon Night. We got it in an It's Bourbon Night Glen here for today's review. So let's talk about this bottle. I'm actually taking my own life for granted here in reviewing this bottle and touching it because this bottle is cursed from what I can tell thus far. We did do a recent trip on the Bourbon Trail, and the first casualty of this bottle was Durrell, who dropped it in the parking lot. That parking lot smelled delicious, I gotta say. But it slipped out of his hands as he was trying to shut a car door. And that was the first bottle of this that died amongst us that got it. And then there was another casualty. So, a tip, if you do go on this tour, bring some parafilm so that you can really secure this cork on the way home. One of our other companions did not. And this little flimsy little tape here did not survive the plane pressure. And his clothes smelled delicious. So we made a parking lot smell delicious and we made clothes smell delicious. So this thing is becoming very more scarce as the bottles from our party continue to become deceased. But with that said, the Do Your Bourbon experience over at Heaven Hill, oh, that was really, really fun. So ultimately, you get to fill your own bottle. But what they do is have you sit down and taste four different expressions of Heaven Hill. We got to taste a select stock. We got to taste a Belheim, the Larceny, and then an Elijah Craig. All of them are barrel proofs, and all of them are ultimately blends that are being created. So essentially, micro blends that are being created for that experience, and they just sell that blend until it sells out. So this one is blend Y for the You Bourbon, whatever it stands for, experience, July 2023. So that's that blend. And then once that blend wears out, it'll go to the next one. Our tour guide, who was amazing, shout out to Doug, he told us there were about 10 barrels in this blend, just to give you a sense of the size of these blends if you do this experience yourself. Now, going into it, we thought we were all going to get the select stock, honestly, but it was a 9 year malted whiskey. It was like 50% corn, 50% malted barley. And it was good, but it's like $150. And then as you went down the line, and the Larceny and the Elijah Craig are like $80. I mean, the Larceny killed it on taste, but then to kill it on price too, it was like kind of a no brainer. So I think everyone in the party pretty much got the Elijah Craig barrel proof once we got to taste them all. But sometimes I do hear the select stocks that they offer during this tour could be like off the wall, really, really good. So that's one thing to keep an eye on, but it is $150 for that select stock. So let's get into this here. And when we get to the conclusions, man, I mean, you're going to find out that I'm pretty impressed by this and ultimately walked away with a better experience on this bottle than I have with some of the official releases from the last couple of years. So let's get to the tasting notes. Cheers, everybody. Thank you for joining me this far. Oh, man, the nose is just so good. It's just all of that peanut brittle that you want from a Heaven Hill barrel proof. Now, I was trying to think if he gave us an age statement on this one. Um, Gosh, I feel like he gave us an estimation of the ages, and I think maybe the youngest one was 10 years, but I might be misremembering. But it did seem younger than like the 12-year age stated, if I'm remembering correctly. So that's something else to keep in mind. But it was a blend of 10 barrels. What I really liked about this one in particular was a lot of layers of fruit. So essentially, we're going to be in the berries kind of family, raspberries, blackberries, covered in powdered sugar. And then it's just got that sweet oak wrapping all around this thing as if all those flavors are in the sleeping bag. This might sound odd. Um, One of the smells that I get from this too is like a chalk, almost like a wet chalk. And then as I get down into it deeper, I will say there is even a bit of citrus on here. The citrus could be interpreted as lemon bars with that powdered sugar that I mentioned before, and then just an underlying crust there for that breadiness. So lots going on in the nose, man. This is one I could sit here and pick apart quite a bit. Let's get into the palate. Cheers, everyone. Mhm. Mm. Gosh darn, that is good. Man, that really upped the intensity there. Ooh, that actually was more intense than I was expecting it to be based off my prior tastings. Oy vey. One thing that struck me up front was the mouthfeel. Oh my gosh, is this rich and oily? Even upfront flavor wise, if you get natural peanut butter, the ones you have to stir, imagine taking your spoon and just getting a little bit of the oil off of the top of that and sipping on that. That's kind of what you get initially with drinking this. It is that oily and that viscous and that coating up front. Um, I mean, it just rubs over everything on the tongue. Let's go in for one more sip here. Yeah, up front, man, it's all that peanut oil, bit of pepper, bit of spice. You're definitely going to feel that. And then it turns into this just intense, awesome peanut butter cup. Chocolate comes through, the peanut butter is just nice and creamy and sweet. And then those berries continue to come through. Not just the raspberries and the blackberries, as mentioned as before, but cherries as well. So you get a whole bunch of berries, a whole bunch of just red, dark, deep fruits from the berries. Oh, I love it. Let's get into the finish. Yeah, it's essentially those same flavors going into the finish, though that peanut butter cup does lean into more of a peanut butter brittle. By the time you get into the finish, oh, another flavor bass there. Whew. And then there is a salted caramel with some soft pretzel on the back end too. That just hangs and hangs and hangs. That saltiness in particular right now is what I'm feeling with that caramel. Man, just the flavors in this one are so rich and deep. Now, one thing I will say, let me take one more sip. So there is a omnipresent sweet oak, more or less presents itself either as a rich chocolate or gosh, even getting into like the skin of that pretzel even. But the oak doesn't come across as a 12-year age statement or a 13 and a half year age statement. Like it comes across as something that's maybe 9, 10 years old, if that makes sense. So the oak isn't one of the most dominant flavors. It is just the peanut butter, peanut brittle, sweet peanut butter, sweet caramel, salted caramel, just intenseness that goes on. And that's what makes this one so good. So let's get into the scores here. And as far as I know, this is still at the distillery as of recording. So if you like what you hear, maybe this entices you to do that experience. So here on the channel, we do break things down into a three-tier scoring system. There's a whole bunch of metrics behind the scenes on these, but ultimately it can get summarized as a flavor score, experience score, and a value score. Now, for the value, I might have mentioned this right off the top. This cost $80, I believe. It was $79.99. Also 129 proof, all of which I am still feeling in the back of my throat. The flavor, it got an 85 out of 100. Experience got an 88 out of 100. And then for the value, that one got all the points. So ultimately, it ends up at an 88 out of 100, which is an excellent, excellent score. Let me get one more sip here. Oh, man. Excellent, excellent score. That score is better than some of the official batches. If you were to go back and look through some of our reviews, one of the things we are working on is reviewing all the Elijah Craig batches we can, what Pyra bottles we can, but at least from A717. Wait, do I got it? No, A117. I had it right the first time. Through the present, that'll be something that we'll get out by the end of the year. But now seeing all those scores, 88 above average score for any Elijah Craig barrel batch, barrel proof batch. So keep that in mind if you do the fill your own bottle experience. You are getting something potentially very, very good. Of course, this is the 723. Any batch will differ, but they are taking good care of these 10 barrel batches. So I definitely do recommend this experience to everybody. And if the Elijah Craig doesn't impress you that day, hey, get a chance at the Larceny, get a chance at the Belheim. Maybe the select stock will be something different than what we saw that day. So do I plan to buy another? After this experience, I would love to go back to Heaven Hill and do another fill your own bottle experience. I thought that was really, really cool. And just ultimately what we got to get out of it. I mean, I guess if you include the price of the tour to the price of the bottle, it elevates it up to 110, if I say that out loud. But that whole experience is worth the price of admission. Doug was a great tour guide, taught us a whole bunch of stuff, walked us through all the different flavors and everything, showed us how to change it with water. It was a good time. And then as we got into it, we got to go in knowing we made the right decision. So hopefully that answers a few questions. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions about this particular experience. But if you do the You Do Bourbon experience, man, you can get a good Elijah Craig out of it. Maybe one of the other barrels will impress you even more. So thank you for joining me today for the whiskey review, everybody. In the comments, also let me know if you've done this experience and what you thought of your bottle and the experience itself. We'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you